Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Fortitude. I'm Aldalu Dennis, General Partner at Initialized Capital, and today joining me is Tracy Young, former CEO and co-founder of PlanGrid. PlanGrid was an initialized portfolio company which was sold to AutoDesk for almost $1 billion a couple of years ago. Tracy, tell us a little bit about what PlanGrid was and what they did.
Yeah, PlanGrid builds software for the construction industry. Today it's part of the AutoDesk construction group, and they are still building great software for the construction industry.
What motivated you to start PlanGrid?
Oh, I just wanted to solve a problem I had in the field. I was trained as a construction engineer, really lucky to be able to work on 2 hospital construction projects, and it was just obvious. Like, the paper problem was obvious to everyone who is in the industry. We just lucked out with timing. It was a miracle the founders knew each other. We were 2 construction engineers and 2 incredibly talented software developers, and we just decided to build software for construction.
With a successful exit, this is something that I know that a lot of startup founders are thinking about as the fundraising environment gets more tight and the economy faces a potential downturn. What advice would you have for founders that are thinking about, should I look for an acquisition for my company?
2 pieces of advice come to mind. One is companies are bought, they're not sold. If we want a deal more than the acquirers do, then the deal's not going to happen. That's just fact. And then 2, you're either selling the company or you're not. There's really nothing in between. So there's no point in talking to corp dev unless you want to sell your company. Otherwise, it's just a complete waste of a lot of time when you could be talking to your customers and building the product.
If companies are not sold, they're bought, that almost makes me feel like you need to be approached by the potential acquirer and they already have a hole that they think that you'll fill, which doesn't give a lot of hope for companies that haven't been approached yet. How do we reconcile that?
Yeah, so if the acquirer is a public company, there's actually a lot of information that is disclosed in the earnings call. Our acquirers were Autodesk, and for several earnings calls and several quarters, Andrew, the CEO, is very vocal about wanting to go into the construction space. And so since that was our industry, there's only like 1 or 2 companies he could be talking to, and we would be one of them. So we had always anticipated a call from them, and we were right about that.
Okay, so pay attention to what public companies are saying that they need, and try to meet the right people.
They're only going to put money down if it aligns with their business goals.
During that time, I'm sure you had a lot of ups and downs, but I would love for you to share, especially since you're on the other side of it now, some of those challenges that you faced in building a successful company.
Yeah, running a startup is not for the faint of heart. You can have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in the same day. I found out after trying for a year, I was pregnant, which, you can imagine how excited and happy and also a little bit frightened I was. I remember walking into work and then seeing an email come through my phone from my VP of engineering that basically said, yo, I'm not coming back. My laptop and my keys are in my desk, and, peace out. And we're calling him and saying, like, have you ever heard of a 2-week notice? And by the way, I saw you for an hour yesterday. You just didn't even mention this. You could have mentioned it then. So I had an executive leave us in the most chicken shit way possible and having to deal with that. And at the time, it was really hard for me to deal with it. I started thinking it was my fault. I started blaming myself. I must be the worst leader under the sun for someone to leave me like this.
Well, and how big was the team then?
The team in R&D at the time was over 100 people. So, their leader left them. And you can imagine the turbulence that happened after that, and having to go in and really peel back the onion layers and realize that it was a little bit messed up and that there was just a complete lack of leadership there for a year.
Did he get on the phone with you? If you're going to quit and via email, it's almost like they don't pick up their phone after that.
Yeah, I don't even remember. Maybe it wasn't even a phone call. Maybe it was just an email back. How
did you pick up the pieces of that and stabilize the team and motivate them to continue?
There's a point where there's just I don't know, the phases of sorrow or the phases of guilt. And I think after allowing myself to completely go through the roller coaster of emotions, and mind you, I was pregnant at the time, so it might have been, even more magnified. Finally allowing myself to just feel everything that comes with that, the insecurity, the guilt, the pain, the sadness, being afraid. After that, I went into game mode, right? It was like, all right, how are we gonna fix this? I think that's like what every founder needs to do. Roll up the sleeves and actually face reality as it is and get work done. For me, it was many months of sitting down with everyone and just talking through the problems. And for us, it was very clear. What we lacked was clear engineering values. And so there was like 3 camps that just did not align on basic values. Some people self-selected out and we made some changes. And it was a much better functioning org after that.
I'm interested in how you diagnose and fix a problem with a department that's being run for a year by someone who clearly wasn't up to the task. And very specifically, I think that's something that our portfolio founders and startup founders everywhere have to deal with, which is at some point you get big enough that you're not on the ground day to day and hearing about dysfunctionalities in particular departments. And in this example, you stepped in and managed the department, and how you can then diagnose and fix what's going on and make cuts or reorganize and put in processes.
First thing I did was basically make Battlefield promoted a bunch of people. It was clear who the leaders are, and I think the cream rises to the top when things are really bad, and that's exactly what happened. I was really lucky to have really great engineering managers there. And mind you, they were also dealing with their own pain at the time, right? Because someone they respected, that they had reported to, that they thought they were friends with,
Abandoned
them. Exactly. Can you imagine? It's like suddenly they were orphans from someone they actually loved, and working through that. And we brought in an engineering coach for all of them, and it wasn't actually basic management or technical skills they needed to be shored up on. Honestly, it was more of therapy for them, because we were all dealing with abandonment issues, which is crazy. It's not something you think about in business, but it happens often.
It does, and in empowering that team to rise to the occasion, do you feel like the engineering team was, how long did it take before things were stable?
Well, there's a lot of turbulence. So again, a lot of people self-selected out. We lost a lot of really good people because they just didn't understand, or they were not on board with the new plan. I'd say, this too shall pass. And it just, once it feels really bad, and this is the thing about startups, is it's this constant vacillation between feeling really good and then feeling really bad. And sometimes you feel bad a little bit longer, but you will feel good again. There's seasons. And that's what happened for us. It started feeling good again.
I appreciate that you started with talking about how personally you were having one of your best days with learning about the pregnancy for your oldest child. And I'm also acutely aware that there are personal things that happen that also impact the business, and that's certainly one of the challenges that sometimes when you're sort of focused on the business are not the priority, but certainly have a deep impact.
Yeah. We're all, I think what makes founding and building a company hard is life doesn't stop just because you're doing the most challenging thing you've ever done before. We're all dealing with death. We're all dealing with aging. We're all dealing with a worldwide health pandemic and sickness and illnesses. I remember being with my team. I was pregnant with my second child. It was my second pregnancy. I just felt something slip out of me, and I knew it was very wrong. I went to the bathroom, and I just fell on the ground. You know exactly what it is at that point. And I didn't know what to do, that's never happened before. I just walked back out and pretended like nothing happened, because I was like in shock. I didn't know what to do. I think about that moment a lot. Sometimes the only thing to do is just to cry. And there's not much more than that. Why I didn't talk to my team about it, I don't know. They were all supportive. They would all, helped me out. Maybe they had gone through it older. Maybe they had gone through it, or their partners had gone through it, but I think in that moment I just, went internal because it was something that I wanted to go through by myself.
I think that's the hardest thing about, I actually think it's great that people are talking about abortions now because of Roe versus Wade and things that we're trained to keep to ourselves because they somehow make us. I sometimes think of it as like, I don't talk about these things because it makes me less, professional, or you might start to see me a different way. I think it's so powerful that, from the top, from the CEO, to be able to hear that it's okay to talk about these vulnerabilities and share them rather than having to go on as if nothing has happened.
So true, especially with our world today. It's like all you have to do is, semi-pay attention to the news, and our world is in shambles right now. It's from so many different viewpoints and vectors, and it's really hard not to take the sorrow of the world in. And then yet we're still, we're still working. And how do we balance those two?
And I would say today, like, I couldn't go into a meeting and tell people that, like, hey, I just had a miscarriage, right? I would feel uncomfortable doing that because it's so profoundly personal. And even talking about it after the fact, I know is not easy. And I thank you for, sharing that.
If I could do anything all over again, I think past the moment where I'm just really confused and lost, there's like several months after that where I'm obviously just devastated and heartbroken, but I also just was really angry. And I think that anger came out, and maybe it wouldn't have come out, or maybe less of it, or a shortened amount of time, if I just spoke openly about it. And I didn't want to go there. And so if I were to do anything differently, I would have gone into, maybe one-on-ones with the team instead of being pissed for no reason. I should have just told them, like, hey, I've just gone through this really terrible thing, and this is why I'm behaving the way I am. And it's like not okay, but just like help understand that this is what happened to me, and I'm trying to deal with it. And it's nothing to do with you. I'm not angry at you.
Totally. And that's something that I appreciate about Initialized is that it's very accepting of even just, hey, I have to take my son to soccer camp, or my spouse is injured or traveling or whatever. And I used to not want to share any personal stuff. And it's a culture where we can do that and not be embarrassed about it. And I think it's such a relief and allows people to be better versions of themselves and more productive. I hear you're working on something new, and I don't know if you are able to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we did nothing for 3 months, my co-founder and I, Ralph. Did nothing for 3 months. We hated it. I think we're a little too young to retire right now. And we also joined a VC for a year, and there were things that we really liked about it. We liked the teaching part of it, but the waiting 10 years to see if you did a good job or not, that was really hard for us as founders. We're both engineers. We like fixing problems, and I think there is nothing more rewarding or challenging than company building. It's dynamic. There's people problems, there's product problems, there's market problems, and it's an incredibly fulfilling and rewarding job. Just as PlanGrid was the solution that I wish I had when I was a construction engineer in the field, TigerEye, our new company, is the solution I wish I had to grow PlanGrid. We went from 0 to 100 million in ARR in 8 years. And we really didn't have the tools to help us understand our business. And I think about this alternate reality where I am still running PlanGrid today as a standalone company, and there would be a few things that we would have had done differently. And we've basically productized it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and congratulations on the new venture.